What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for November 5th, 2021. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. If you missed it, check out the bonus podcast that RJ and I recorded early on Friday morning, went up late on Friday night, just didn't have a chance to publish it earlier on in the day until then. But it went up late last night, breaking down all the departures from WWE on Thursday. The releases of Keith Lee, Karrion Kross, Scarlett, B-Fab, Frankie Monet, Oni Lorcan, G. Rama, and everyone else in between. Some surprising names, some not so surprising names, Nia Jax, Eva Marie, among others. We get into all of it in that bonus podcast. Clocks in at just over an hour, so we go into great detail about each departure, why they may have been let go, reasons for why they were let go, why they were let go now and not at another time, what this kind of says about WWE on the whole right now, why now they would have released these people, and again, why not a couple of months ago, why not a few months from now, stuff like that. So we go into great detail with our thoughts on each departure, the reasons behind each departure, and the baffling decisions being made over at WWE behind the scenes right now. So check that out. I would appreciate it. Like I said, clocks in at just over an hour, and if you were as frustrated as we are, or at least as I am, I can only speak for myself, but RJ sounded pretty, disappointed and shocked as well in regards to certain people, then you're going to want to check that out and share our sentiments on the releases. So do that when you get a chance. After this review, of course, because today we're talking SmackDown from last night. This was a bit of a better show than last week. Last week had no Roman Reigns. And I mentioned at the beginning of that review that no Roman Reigns is a very bad sign for SmackDown. If he was to ever get hurt or get sick again or God knows what else, SmackDown would be in deep shit. Even with Roman Reigns, this show was not great. It was decent. It was a bit better than last week. Last week was a completely throwaway show. A total throwaway show. This was a bit better with Roman Reigns being back, but still far from great. And I go back to the same point I made a week ago. Is Survivor Series even happening on November 21st? That is a serious question. I know we're getting commercials for the pay-per-view. I don't know if they're airing during SmackDown. I see them when I watch stuff on Peacock or whatever. On the WWE YouTube channel, I see it. Beyond that, though, there has not been a single mention of this pay-per-view on their television shows, either one, Raw or SmackDown, in recent weeks. The show, as we speak right now, is in 15 days. Not next Sunday, not tomorrow, but in 2 weeks from tomorrow. So they still have 2 episodes of Raw, 2 episodes of SmackDown to build up this show. I'm not even advocating for the usual, here's the fucking SmackDown under siege, Raw under siege, invasion angle, like that shit's been done to death. I'm not even saying that. But you gotta at least announce a card for this fucking show. I mean, they haven't announced anything. And for years, it's been usually, aside from 2019, at least with the World Champions, I mean, the rest of the card had this, but champion versus champion matches, or Raw versus SmackDown elimination matches. We have not gotten a single qualifying match, a single mention of, this champion's got to face this champion to the pay-per-view. On this show alone, we got the furthering of the feud between New Day and the Bloodline. The only person missing was Big E. Again, I'm not saying, Big E has to be out there, he has to be appearing on the other show so soon after the draft. If they don't want to run into that issue of having people appear in other people's shows so soon after the draft, then don't do the fucking draft in October, a month before Survivor Series, when we're supposed to buy into this bullshit narrative that there's brand supremacy, the feuding brands, Raw versus SmackDown. It means absolutely nothing. It never has, it doesn't, and it never will. But at the very least, you can announce a card for the show. It would make more sense of what we saw in this show with Woods and Kofi and Roman and the Usos if they just outright announced it would be Roman Reigns versus Big E, the WWE Champion versus the Universal Champion at Survivor Series. We have yet to get a single confirmation that will be the case come Survivor Series in 2 weeks. I assume we're getting it. We're getting all the building blocks for that main event. The rest of the card is in fucking shambles right now. Nakamura wasn't on the show. Corbin was feuding with Nakamura. There was no mention of that here on this show. Nakamura at this rate would be facing Damian Priest, which sounds like a fun match for that show. U.S. Champion versus Intercontinental Champion, but again, no mention of it recently on Raw or SmackDown. The tag team champions, what would it be? The Usos versus RK Bro? Sounds fucking awesome. The Usos seem more concerned with New Day right now, and RK Bro seem more concerned with the Profits and Dirty Dogs and AJ and Omos. AJ's not even on the show right now. It's a fucking mess, man. It is an absolute mess. And you're telling me this is supposed to be one of their big 4 pay-per-views? Give me a break. I mean, if you looked at the WWE 22 pay-per-view schedule for next year, the 2022 schedule, you would see that there's a lot of stadium shows. There's a lot of Saturday shows that are happening at stadiums. Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam, all in stadiums next year. You know the one show that's not in a stadium? Well, Money in the Bank is, but you know the one show that isn't? Survivor Series. It's actually in Boston, which is good news for me, back over here in the Northeast. I was aiming to go to Survivor Series this year. I'm not even sure if I want to anymore. I mean, why the fuck would I go out of my way to go to a show where a card is not even announced yet? And the matches could be fun, but at least last year, like, they had the brand supremacy bullshit, but 1, they built it up. 2, at least the show had that Undertaker hook going for it. Oh, 30 years of The Undertaker. This year, seemingly to me, it feels like that we were supposed to get a big focus on The Rock. 25 years of The Rock, celebrating this month. WWE's doing a lot for it on their social media channels and on YouTube and on Peacock and whatever. But because The Rock can't make the show, I think he's filming the 2nd season of Young Rock over in Australia. They're like, fuck it, we have no plans for the show. Let's just not give a fuck about the show, I guess. That's my assumption. So anyway, let's get right into the show. Starting with the opening segment. I mentioned the Bloodline earlier, the New Day. Pretty standard stuff here. Roman said he wasn't on last week's show because he was on vacation, which could have easily been an excuse or a lie or whatever to cover for whatever reason he wasn't actually on the show. But I believe it. The guy has a tan. He probably did go on vacation. Roman's been busting his ass since coming back and winning the Universal Championship almost immediately back in August of 2020. I don't think he's had any time off since then, so he's been on pretty much every episode of SmackDown since then, some episodes of Raw, almost every pay-per-view. Why not give the guy a break? To me, it makes sense. So I guess he had the week off, he got a tan, came back, and he was absolutely right when he said here in this segment and in that backstage segment later on in the show, SmackDown sucks without Roman Reigns. It's almost as bad as Raw. That was a shoot comment, if I have ever heard one from Roman Reigns. Roman was kind of shooting on Raw when we spoke for our interview a couple of months ago. About a month ago here on the channel, check it out, she plug. But he was saying he had no desire to go to Monday Night Raw, and I can't fucking blame him. But I will say this, though. Raw was a better show than SmackDown this week. That may not be a popular opinion, but I'm not really sure why it wouldn't be. Because Raw, I thought, was one of the best shows they've put on in a while. Not an amazing show, but an enjoyable 3 hours. SmackDown, I can't say I had as much fun with this show as I did with Raw on Monday. But this was a solid segment. King Woods and Sir Kofi Kingston came out to interrupt Roman and the Usos. Roman was not happy with the Usos losing to the New Day in last week's main event without him there. But before he could really take action on them, Woods came out, Kingston came out, talking about how Woods is now the real king of WWE and what he's going to do as king and how he's the real tribal chief of the show, blah, blah, blah. So this set up the night's main event, Xavier Woods, King Woods rather, versus Jimmy Uso, where if Woods won, Jimmy Uso would have to bend the knee to King Woods. But if Woods lost, Woods would have to bend the knee to the tribal chief Roman Reigns. So I liked how they did that. It wasn't like this, super meaningful stipulation. And even because Woods won, spoiler alert, they still didn't do the stipulation. Uso still didn't bend the knee to Woods. Maybe he will have to at some point. But before he could, the Bloodline came out and interrupted it and attacked the New Day. But I like that because it added more meaning to an otherwise meaningless main event. Don't get me wrong, Woods and Jimmy Uso had a good match in the main event, but it really wouldn't have meant nearly as much. The stakes were not high enough for me to really care about that match if they didn't have that stipulation attached to it. Again, it wasn't the most meaningful stipulation in the world, but it was better than nothing, I will say that. So I liked how they established that here. And it makes sense because Woods is the king of the ring. Roman is going around calling himself the tribal chief of WWE. So it was inevitable before these two went at it. And I thought it was because we're getting the Bloodline and New Day at the pay-per-view, or rather Roman versus Big E in the main event of Survivor Series. But I'm not sure if that's still the case or not. It probably is, but they haven't made a single mention of that. So I'm not even sure if that's intentional. It is cool, though, that they are capitalizing off the Woods momentum by putting him in a storyline with Roman Reigns. And I thought last week, I don't really want to see Woods and Kofi doing more of the tag team stuff. They probably will get a tag team title shot at some point. They beat the fucking tag team champions last week. I don't know if it was a championship contenders match or not, but they beat them in the main event last week. But it is cool that I would rather more see. We've seen that match a million times. They work well together. It's always a good match. But I'm more so looking forward to a one-off TV match, not even a pay-per-view match. They don't have to wait until WWE Day 1 because it's not exactly a marquee match. But I'm looking forward to the eventual day that we get Roman versus Woods one-on-one, whether it be for the Universal Championship or not. Woods obviously is not winning. But it would be nice to finally see a King of the Ring at least elevated for a brief bit before going back to doing the mid-card stuff. I can't remember a single world title shot that Sheamus ever got as King of the Ring, that Barrett ever got as King of the Ring, that Corbin ever got as King of the Ring. They were never taken to that next level. Woods is not a main event player. Sorry to tell you, but he's not. But if they give him a brief shot at the Universal Championship, have him brush shoulders with Roman Reigns, I like that. Rub shoulders, whatever the fucking expression is. I like that a lot. So I thought this was a fine segment. And Roman shooting on Raw there was probably the best part. So we got Naomi versus Shayna Baszler again. And they advertised this coming into the show. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. Hopefully they give this more time than they did last time. Because they got no time last time when they went one-on-one on SmackDown. And, it was like a minute-long match. This wasn't much better. It went a couple of minutes. They went very briefly before the commercial break. They come back from the commercial break. It ended almost immediately. So it really wasn't much of a match. I'm not saying these two are going to go out there and have this barn burner of a match, but it would be nice if we got a match with these women on these shows that lasted more than 5 or 6 minutes. This wasn't exactly that. So Naomi wins, I think with a roll-up or something. And Sonya predictably comes out, restarts the match. Shayna, locks Naomi in the Kirifuda clutch, and it's over almost immediately. So, again, not much of a match, but we got the old restart from Sonya there, the authority figure here on SmackDown. Why isn't Adam Pearce doing anything about it, but he was actually attacked by Brock last week or 2 weeks ago, so I guess that would make sense. I mean, he was shown on SmackDown last week, he looked fine, but he wasn't on the show in person, so I guess that's why he's not there. I'm liking the Naomi-Sonya feud overall. I can't complain about the idea of getting a second storyline in the SmackDown Women's division that's not over the SmackDown Women's Championship. So I can't complain. And it's not terrible. It's not like they're trading wins for the sake of trading wins. I mean, I guess Naomi and Shayna are. My nitpick of this is that some weeks it's good furthering of the feud, some weeks it's not. This was not a good week for the Naomi-Sonya feud. We still have yet to get an explanation as to why Sonya has it out for Naomi. At this point, I don't think we ever will. But this was more of the same bullshit, really not much of a match, screwing over Naomi. When is she going to give Sonya her comeuppance? When are we going to get the Naomi-Sonya match? Is it at the Day 1 pay-per-view? I would do it at a pay-per-view. I wouldn't do it on any ordinary TV episode. So maybe that's what they're holding out for. I did not think this was the most creative way, though, to progress the program. It was pretty basic. We've seen it before. The restart shit makes no sense. So, not exactly a great week for the Sonya-Naomi feud, in my opinion. We got Los Lotharios versus Cesaro and Mansoor. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. I'm pretty sure there's probably a better way to say it than Los Lotharios or whatever. That's probably not great either. But they were in action. It was Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo. That's their new name. And I think Angel Garza called himself, or still does, El Lothario or Los Lothario or whatever it was. That was his nickname for a while, so it's not a very super creative name, but it's good enough. I like the name. I like the team. They're a great heel team. It was a well-wrestled, nice little match between these two teams. The problem with this match, two things actually. One, why the fuck did it happen? Aside from giving a win to Garza and Carrillo, which is nice. I'm glad they're building them up. The weird thing about all of this is that literally a week ago, did we get two different creative teams on the show? Because now that I think about it, a week ago, Garza and Carrillo interfered in the Trick or Street fight, or was it 2 weeks ago? I thought it was it was last week. It was the Halloween episode. They got involved in the Nakamura Boogs versus Corbin and Madcap Moss tag team street fight match. They cost Nakamura and Boogs the win. There was no mention, I don't think, of that here. Garza and Carrillo were out doing their own thing, winning a match, cool. Corbin and Moss went on to do their own thing later on in the show. No interaction there. And Nakamura and Boogs weren't on the show either. So, very weird week. Like, it was almost as if that never even happened. Maybe they're just taking an off week to sell the beatdown of Nakamura or Boogs. I guess, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, so Garza and Carrillo in action here. Final little match, they win. That's great. Why the fuck are they beating the random team of Mansoor versus Cesaro? I mean, seriously, whatever happened to the concept of local athletes? This team just came together. They don't have to be beating random single stars in a tag team match off the bat. If it was like Garza versus Mansoor, or Carrillo versus Cesaro, or whatever, that I really wouldn't have as much of an issue with, because there was never any explanation as to why Cesaro and Mansoor were teaming at all. I mean, they're both baby faces, but that's the only thing they have in common, is the fact they're both baby faces. Mansoor is coming off, I mean, Cesaro losing at this point, can you even care? I mean, the guy's been directionless for months. He got a shot. He beat Rollins at WrestleMania. He got a shot at Roman Reigns at the Universal Championship, and it's been steadily downhill from there. He wasn't even in the Money in the Bank ladder match. I don't think he's even been on a pay-per-view since he challenged, or he was on Hell in the Cell. He lost to Rollins in Hell in the Cell. He finally lost to Rollins at the Hell in the Cell pay-per-view, and then that was it. He lost to Rollins again on SmackDown. He wasn't even at Money in the Bank. He was feuding not even feuding, but he had a couple of random matches with Alpha Academy. He wrestled recently doing something random on the show a few weeks ago, I think. And now he actually took the loss here, so not even Mansoor, who, I mean, I guess makes more sense at this point to protect Mansoor because he's coming off 2 wins against Ali. But still, it was very sad to see Cesaro in there taking the loss like he was a fucking jabroni. He has fallen far from WrestleMania. I mean, again, I was never expecting him to become champion. I was never expecting his main event push to be sustained. But he was one of those guys that Daniel Bryan was very much behind when he was in the company. And now that Bryan isn't there anymore, he's not there to go to bat for him. Cesaro's back on the chopping block. I would not be surprised at all, I hate to say it, but I would not be surprised at all to see Cesaro's name on one of these lists one of these days of people being released from the company. Because they clearly have used up their usage for him, aside from just doing jobs to people. He's just another guy on the show, and he really always has been, but even 6 months ago, I mean, these people were really behind him as far as the online support, because there were no fans in the building. But I was at WrestleMania. He got a great reaction at WrestleMania. And since they've been back on the road, he's gotten good reactions too. But he's just done a whole lot of nothing. So it's impossible to care about the guy. So Los Lotharios winning is great, but why not have them beat like an actual team or local athletes, not this random team of Mansoor and Cesaro? I don't even think they set this up in any way, backstage. Like with Garza and Carrillo bumping into these two backstage. Maybe they did and I missed it. But this was beyond fucking random. And it was a sad sight to see Cesaro, relegated to doing jobs in random tag team matches at this point. It's pretty unfortunate. Drew McIntyre issued yet another open challenge this week, this time being answered by Ricochet, another fellow former Raw superstar. This was a lot of fun. Ricochet, we got to hear from him very briefly beforehand. It was not a long match at all, but for the 4 or 5 minutes this went for, it was a fucking blast. Ricochet was in there, taking a lot of offense from McIntyre, who looked like he was a man rejuvenated. McIntyre has really been a breath of fresh air on SmackDown since coming over. He hasn't been involved in anything meaningful, mind you, but he has been putting forth a great effort in all of these matches. Not very long matches, but they don't really need to be. McIntyre is a step above all of his competition so far. He's a step above Sammy and Ricochet and Ali. So him beating these people in a matter of minutes makes sense. I mean, I would give some of these matches more time selfishly because they're good matches. But for the 4 or 5 minutes this went for, it was great. I really enjoyed it, and Ricochet looked great in defeat with he got a lot of offense in on here. It was a lot of innovative offense and a lot of like, holy shit, wow, did you look at that? This was cool. They really work well together, and they've been having matches against each other for years now, dating back to 2019. So I can't really say I'm surprised. But again, I really enjoyed this, and I thought, Ricochet really put forth a great effort before losing. McIntyre winning with a sexy-looking Claymore kick in the middle of nowhere. It was second only to the super kick from Adam Cole to Ricochet at TakeOver Brooklyn 4, was it? Back in 2017 or 2018. That was an awesome spot. This was very similar to that. Not quite as good, but still pretty great. And McIntyre won with that, which was cool. Ricochet was actually confronted afterward by Mustafa Ali, who was shown watching this match from the back. Now, Ali lost to McIntyre last week. So seemingly he was attempting to court Ricochet, trying to become his, mentor or something. And I'm not sure. I'm glad that Ricochet is not exuding dumb babyface syndrome by just falling for it and saying, oh yeah, sure, absolutely. Like, we were friends before. I'll take your advice just because I'm losing. Let's make something happen. No, Ricochet watches the show. He's not fucking stupid. He saw how Ali treated Mansoor and what he did to him in the end, and Mansoor thought better of it, turned on him. kind of separated and severed ties with Ali and beat him twice. Why would Ricochet do the exact same thing? The guy would be a fucking moron to fall for the same shit that Mansoor did. So I'm glad he was like, no, I refuse. So we'll see where that goes. Hopefully we can get a real Ricochet-Ali feud on this show. We did get it late last year, but it was with all the retribution bullshit, and Ricochet was out there losing to fucking Slapjack and Mace and T-Bar and all these other losers in the group. Like, he looked like a fucking loser. So if they can do the feud right this time with these two, and they can have a series of fun matches on the show. They actually had a couple of kick-ass matches on Main Event, I think, earlier this year. So bring that to SmackDown. It could, result in some fun matches here on Friday nights. The weakest point of the show, we had Happy Talk with Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss, who, I've said before, I don't mind the pairing of the two. The problem is the stupid laugh track and the dumb jokes, which I know is intended to elicit heat or whatever. It really doesn't. It's more of an eye roll, like, wow, that was really stupid. The jokes are supposed to be bad, I get it. But the whole, laughing at their own jokes because they're happy is very not creative. I'm sure you can find other ways of telling people that Corbin is happy than having him laugh at bad jokes. So they host Happy Talk with the Viking Raiders. Again, completely random. The segment sucks. They have a match. Viking Raiders actually beat Corbin and Moss by countout, which tells you that we're going to get another match between these two teams. This was it was not good. The segment sucked. The match was fine. Nothing I really want to see a rematch of. Like I said before, Corbin and Moss are not a bad team. And honestly, Corbin entering the tag team ranks is not a terrible idea. He's had a lot of alliances over the years, but he's never had a full-on tag team partner. And Moss is better off with someone like a Corbin. So them doing the tag team thing, it's something new for Corbin. He's been United States champion. He could always go for the Intercontinental Championship, and he did beat Nakamura 2 weeks ago, and there was no acknowledgement of that here on the show. There was no furthering of that. I don't know why. Nakamura was not there. I don't want to see him as Intercontinental Champion, but him as a tag team champion is not an awful idea. I don't want to see them versus the Usos, but maybe at some point down the road they can get a tag team title run. So this was kind of pointless. This didn't really seem to serve much of a purpose aside from building to a rematch that I don't really care to see. And then we get to Hit Row. Man, Hit Row had quite the 24 hours by the time SmackDown aired. So obviously, as we discussed, as I mentioned very briefly at the beginning of this video, among the releases on Thursday night was B-Fab, new SmackDown superstar according to Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer, newsletter, radio, audio show, whatever, Figure 4 Wrestling Online, whatever, with Dave Meltzer. You guys know who Brian Alvarez is. He tweeted on Thursday night that B-Fab was just 1 week out from signing a new WWE deal, probably as part of the main roster, because usually what they do, to my knowledge, when people get called up from NXT to the main roster, they sign a new contract, which is why they go from having a 30-day non-compete to a 90-day non-compete, because a 90-day non-compete is for part of the main roster. So I don't know where B-Fab is going to go anyway, as far as what promotion would want to sign her, because her in-ring ability is not great, but she would be great as a mouthpiece or as a hype girl or whatever, what she was doing with Hit Row for an Acclaimed, I've seen people say in AEW, that would be fucking awesome, stuff like that. So if we come to find out she has a 90-day non-compete, then the rumors of her, signing a new deal would be accurate, because that would mean that she signed the new main roster contract. But anyway, it's very rare that I think people get called up and still have the 30-day non-compete. Like Aleister Black was the exception. I think they fucked up with him. They didn't realize he didn't sign a new deal, and that's why he had the 30-day non-compete and not the 90-day non-compete. So with B-Fab, that's what we're talking about here. B-Fab, apparently a week out from being, re-signed by the company, she was let go. And that's not overly surprising as far as she just signed. Why would they let go of her? They did the same thing with Chelsea Green, among other people. They signed people to new deals, and then they fire them anyway. It makes no sense, but that's what they do. That's what they've done. It's fucking stupid. And I already talked about how stupid it was for them to let go of B-Fab, regardless of the reason, whether it was because they didn't think she was in-ring ready, which is a complete bullshit excuse. I mean, they have women on their roster, and men too, that are not in-ring ready they kept on the show for years. So what makes B-Fab any different? Maybe it was a vaccination thing, who knows? But they let her go. And people were not happy about B-Fab's absence from SmackDown this week. So Hit Row were out in the, ramp area, rapping with Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn wanted to outdo them and show, oh, this is how you make an entrance. And Zayn's got his new music, by the way, which honestly I don't hate. The original theme I loved, obviously, but it's not heel-like at all. So his new theme is more fitting of his current persona. And I would have turned Zayn back into a babyface a long time ago, but that's besides the point. So he was out there trying to outdo Hit Row, and they did their own entrance and did some, spit some bars, so to speak, and tried to rap and whatever over Zayn, which was great. The actual rapping stuff was fine, but all I could think about while watching this segment was the fact that when Hit Row came out, you didn't hear Hit Row like the B-Fab line in the song. So what they did, this fucking company, man, I can't say I'm shocked because she's not there anymore, so why would you continue to have her in the song? It carries over to the act itself. It's just kind of a small taste of what the entire act is missing without her. The theme song no longer has B-Fab in it. Maybe they'll re-record it, put Swerve Scott saying Hit Row over it, or another woman or someone else. But they took her line out of the song. Her entire portion of the Hit Row theme song is no longer in there, because they played the entire song while they were rapping over Sami Zayn. So you can hear how weird it was without her being a part of it. There was no more Hit Row and all the other stuff that she sings during the course of the song. And she was the main consistent bass of that song. Without B-Fab, the song is not nearly as good. The group itself is not nearly as good without B-Fab. It's not the same. They're just another group of three guys. Not to say they can't be successful without her. Not to say the group sucks without her. It's not B-Fab or nothing. But it really is a stark difference without B-Fab there. I think one of the things that made this group different and unique was, to my knowledge, we haven't seen a lot of factions in WWE recently that have had a woman in them on the main roster. I know NXT now has Legado del Fantasma with Elektra Lopez, which actually happened because of Hit Row. They were feuding with Hit Row, and they needed the woman to oppose B-Fab in the group, so they brought in Elektra Lopez as part of Legado del Fantasma. They have Ivy Nile now in Diamond Mine, which is cool. But before all of that, they had B-Fab in Hit Row. I know China was in DX many, many years ago, but I'm trying to think of another faction in recent years. Like Undisputed Era in NXT never had a female member. Hurt Business never had a female member. The New Day never had a full-fledged female member. The Shield obviously never did, among many other factions. Even 3MB. Anything, really. Any faction they've had on this show in recent years. The Bloodline doesn't have a full-fledged female member, but Hit Row did. And not only did they have a female member, she can't work for shit in the ring, but she was a great talker, she was a great rapper, she was a great singer. She really added a unique element to that group, and they fucked it up by firing her. And now it is very noticeable that she is not there. The segment was just not the same. They're just another group of three guys in a trio, which we already have a lot of on the main roster. Just with we had the Shield, and we have the Bloodline, and we have the New Day, although they're on different brands. The Hurt Business, when they get back together, seemingly, I assume they're back together. I don't know. Full time. This just was not the same. So I applaud the effort here by everyone involved. It wasn't a bad segment, but it was very noticeable that B-Fab was not there. And maybe they'll bring her back again. Maybe it was a vaccination thing. I don't know. We heard there was a couple of people. Nia Jax was among them, I'm sure. I think she kind of not really confirmed it, but she didn't say she wasn't vaccinated, but she kind of hinted at that in her post. But that was about something entirely different, having to do with her mental health, and the company kind of, the fact they fired her, that's a whole other story for a different time. So maybe she was among those people because she seemed like such a random person to get fired. And yeah, her match with Elektra Lopez sucked a couple of weeks ago. But then they called her up right afterward, and it's not like, oh, you're going to call up Hit Row without her. They fucking have. They've called up groups before without women a part of it. So if they didn't really want her a part of it and they thought she needed more development, they could have kept her in NXT or let her go without them or whatever. But they didn't do that. They've debuted on the show. They've appeared on the show. They've had segments on the show with all four of them. And then they let her go. So it's very unfortunate. The segment was fine, but B-Fab's absence, like I said, it was very noticeable. We get to the main event, King Woods versus Jimmy Uso with the aforementioned stipulations. Woods ended up winning. A good, well-wrestled match. Nothing great, but for the time given, it was good. Woods won, I think, with a small package or whatever. So, per the stipulation, Jimmy Uso had to bend the knee to King Woods. But before he could, the Bloodline comes out. They knock out the New Day. They leave him lying, and that was the end of the show. So I thought this was the perfect spot for Big E to come down, make the save, build the Big E and Roman at Survivor Series, make that match announcement finally. There wasn't a single acknowledgement. That is where they're going with this. And maybe it is, maybe it's not. I assume they're just building the Woods and Roman on SmackDown one of these weeks, which is perfectly fine by me. But it should segue into Big E and Roman at the pay-per-view. And it doesn't look like we're getting that. So very bizarre. Very, very bizarre. A good way to close out the show, but overall, a mixed bag of a show. The Hit Row stuff, just, again, not the same without B-Fab. The Happy Talk shit was just not good this week. McIntyre and Ricochet was fun. Los Lotharios versus Cesaro and Mansoor was fun. The Naomi Shayna stuff wasn't exactly for me this week, and the opening segment was solid. So we also got more coming soon vignettes for Xia Li. Aaliyah was shown backstage. Jeff Hardy was shown backstage. He has done absolutely fucking nothing since getting drafted over SmackDown. I don't know what they're waiting for with Jeff Hardy. He's just appeared in backstage segments or not appeared at all. So this show needs star power. Jeff Hardy would be nice. Can we get him in the ring, please? Doing something of no, at least having a match. That would be nice. A little less of Happy Corbin, a little more of Jeff Hardy, please. No Nakamura this week, no Sasha Banks, no Charlotte. We did get Shotzi backstage explaining her actions for why she attacked Shotzi, or for why she attacked Sasha last week. And it was not a good promo. Shotzi, I'm sorry, but she's just a natural babyface. She can make for a fine heel, maybe. The intensity is there. But as far as her speaking ability, she was never an amazing talker to begin with. She's not good on the mic as a heel so far. So maybe she'll get used to it. But so far, not good. But yeah, we got Shotzi very briefly. Ridge Holland cut a promo talking about his admiration for Sheamus for some odd reason. Maybe they'll battle for the right to wear their cabbie hat or whatever you call their is that what they're called? The cabbie hat, the taxi hat, or whatever? They wear a very similar type of hat, so maybe they'll battle for the right to wear that on the show and they'll put it on the pole or something, who knows. But that seemed a little random too. Mixed bag of a show this week. SmackDown has yet to really find its footing since the draft. Hopefully they get back on track soon, but above all else, maybe they're waiting until after Survivor Series season is over. But I would argue it's not even Survivor Series season because we haven't had a single fucking mention of that show since Crown Jewel ended, which is just weird to me. But anyway, thank you guys for checking out my review of Friday Night SmackDown for November 5th, 2021. I appreciate it. Be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Be sure to hit the bell button as well to be notified every time a new video drops. We got plenty of interviews coming here to the channel in the days to come. It's a matter of just transcribing them and putting up the actual interviews. I just haven't had time to do that yet. It's been a very busy last couple of weeks, but they will be up soon, I promise you. In addition to, again, the bonus podcast that I plugged earlier at the start of this show, be sure to check that out now that you're done listening to this. Our complete analysis of every departure from WWE on late Thursday night from myself and Mr. Marceau, also available in just audio form over on WrestleRant.com. Have a great weekend, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.